The signal from beyond. The signal emerged from the void like a ghost's whisper after a century of silence. Commander Eliza Rice was finishing her night shift at Sentinel Station, an aging outpost marking the boundary of human-controlled space, when the alert sounded. 3 short pulses, a long-forgotten pattern that made the hair on her arms stand on end. "Commander, you need to see this," called Lieutenant Park, his voice unusually strained. "We're picking up an automated distress beacon. Old format. Military." Reyes moved to his station, brow furrowed. Sentinel Station rarely detected anything beyond routine merchant vessels and occasional debris. Source. Park's fingers danced across the holographic interface. "That's the thing. It's coming from the Veridan Nebula. Unexplored territory." He hesitated. "And the ship identifier? It's the UES Typhoon." The command center fell silent. Every officer knew the legend of the Typhoon. Humanity's most advanced warship, lost with all hands during the early days of FTL experimentation. The pride of the Earth Alliance fleet, vanished without explanation 97 years ago. "That's impossible," Rice said, but even as the words left her mouth, her eyes confirmed the authentication codes scrolling across the screen. Codes that would be nearly impossible to falsify. "Contact Earth Command immediately. Priority Alpha." 6 hours later, Dr. Marcus Chen stepped through Sentinel Station's docking bay, a single worn duffel bag slung over his shoulder. At 42, Chen was the foremost expert on the Typhoon disaster, his academic career built on studying the legendary ship's disappearance. Most considered his theories about spatial anomalies and dimensional rifts to be fringe science at best. Yet now, Earth Command had pulled him from his university office and rushed him to the edge of known space. Commander Reyes met him at the airlock, her stern features betraying nothing. "Dr. Chen, welcome to Sentinel." Chen studied her with curious eyes. "Commander, I understand you found my ghost ship." "We've detected a signal matching the Typhoon's emergency beacon," she corrected. "Whether it's actually the ship or something else entirely remains to be seen." Chen nodded, unperturbed by her skepticism. "When do we leave?" "The reconnaissance vessel, Artemis, docks in 3 hours. You and I will join Captain Harlow and his crew to investigate the signal. I've been ordered to utilize your expertise, Doctor, but make no mistake. This is a military operation. If the Typhoon has somehow returned after all this time, Earth Command wants to know how and why. And what might be left of the crew," Chen added softly. Rice's expression darkened. "No one survives 97 years adrift, Doctor." "Perhaps not as we understand survival," Chen murmured, but offered nothing more. The Artemis was a sleek vessel designed for deep space reconnaissance, armed sufficiently to defend itself, but built primarily for speed and stealth. Captain Nikolai Harlow was a veteran of the border conflicts, his weathered face bearing the subtle scarring of vacuum exposure. He greeted Rice with professional courtesy, and Chen with thinly veiled suspicion. "Your reputation precedes you, Doctor," Harlow said as they boarded. "I've read your papers. Creative thinking." "But you don't believe my theories," Chen finished for him, smiling slightly. "I believe in what I can see and touch, Doctor. If the Typhoon is really out there, we'll have tangible evidence soon enough." The journey to the coordinates took 18 hours, during which Chen reviewed his research on the Typhoon disaster. The ship had been testing an experimental FTL drive, one designed to fold space in ways previously thought impossible. Its last transmission mentioned unexpected readings, spatial distortions, and then nothing. 97 years of theories, investigations, and eventually resignation to the mystery. "We're approaching the coordinates," announced Lieutenant Sato from navigation. "Dropping out of FTL in 3, 2, 1. The view screen shifted from the streaking lights of faster-than-light travel to the swirling gases of the Veridan Nebula. And there, silhouetted against clouds of purple and blue stellar dust, was the unmistakable form of a warship. "My God," whispered Harlow. "It's really the Typhoon." Chen moved closer to the view screen, his heart pounding. The ship was intact, its once gleaming hull now scarred with strange patterns that seemed to pulse with an inner light. Around the vessel, space itself appeared to bend and warp, as if reality there had become thin and distorted. "Those aren't standard battle scars," Rais observed, pointing to the intricate patterns etched across the Typhoon's hull. "They look almost organic," Chen finished, "like circuit patterns, but not of human design." He turned to Harlow. "Captain, I need to get on that ship." Harlow frowned. "Long-range scans first. We're detecting minimal power signatures, no life support, and radiation fluctuations I've never seen before." He glanced at Reyes. "Commander, your thoughts?" "We proceed with caution," she decided. "Prepare a boarding party. Full environmental suits, weapons ready. We go in, gather data, and return for analysis." "I'm coming with you," Chen said immediately. Rice fixed him with a hard stare. "This isn't an academic expedition, Doctor." "No," Chen agreed, meeting her gaze steadily. "It's potentially first contact with something beyond our understanding, and I've spent my career preparing for exactly this moment." 4 hours later, the boarding party assembled in the Artemis's launch bay. Commander Reyes, Dr. Chen, Lieutenant Quan from Security, and Engineer Specialist Riveret checked their environmental suits one final time before boarding the shuttle. "Remember," Harlow's voice came through their comms, "primary objective is reconnaissance. Document everything, but touch nothing unless absolutely necessary. If anything seems off, anything at all, you return immediately. The Typhoon's been out there for nearly a century. It can wait a few more hours if needed." As their shuttle approached the massive warship, the strange distortions around it became more pronounced. Light bent oddly, and the ship seemed to flicker occasionally, as if partially existing in another reality. "Getting interference on all instruments," Rivera reported, frowning at her controls. "The energy field surrounding the ship is unlike anything in our databases." They docked at an emergency airlock near what had once been the command deck. Rivera overrode the ancient security protocols, and the doors grudgingly opened to reveal darkness beyond. "Lights on," ordered Reyes as they entered, their helmet beams cutting through the blackness. The corridor before them stretched into shadow, emergency lighting flickering weakly at intervals. The artificial gravity was functioning at minimal levels, creating a disorienting sensation as they moved forward. "Air's thin but present," reported Quan, checking his instruments. "Temperature -20 Celsius. Something's still powering basic systems." Chen moved ahead, drawn by the patterns that continued from the exterior hull into the ship's interior. Up close, they resembled intricate circuitry that pulsed with faint blue luminescence. "These patterns," he said, scanning them with his handheld device, "they're not just surface decoration. They're integrated with the ship's systems, like a new kind of technology grafted onto the old." "Or grown into it," Rivera added, her engineer's eyes narrowing at the junction where the strange material merged seamlessly with the ship's original structure. They'd reached the bridge, its massive doors sealed shut. Rivera worked on the access panel while Quan kept watch, weapon ready. "Where are the bodies?" Reyes asked quietly, giving voice to what they all were wondering. A ship this size would have had a crew of at least 300. Chen had been wondering the same thing. A ship adrift for nearly a century should contain remains, yet the corridors were empty. No signs of evacuation or final conflict. The bridge doors finally slid open with a groan of protesting metal. The Typhoon's command center lay before them, a cavernous space filled with workstations, most dark and lifeless. The main view screen was cracked, and several control panels had been torn open, their components scattered. "Looks like there was a struggle," Quan observed, noting distinctive marks on the floor that resembled both weapon damage and something more unusual. Scorch patterns that branched like lightning or roots. Chen moved to the captain's station, his heart racing. This was where Captain Alessandra Diaz had stood, commanding the most advanced ship of her time. The console was covered in dust, but as Chen brushed it away, He noticed the strange filaments, like metallic roots, growing through the controls. "Commander, look at this," he called. Reyes joined him, shining her light on the bizarre growth. "What is this material?" "It's throughout the ship," Rivera said from across the bridge. "These filaments, they are connecting to the ship's systems, integrating with them." She pointed to where the strange material had woven itself into a computer terminal. "It's like it's rewiring the ship to its own specifications." Chen accessed the captain's terminal. To his surprise, it powered up, displaying corrupted log entries. "I've got something," he said as the others gathered around. The screen flickered, showing fragmented video. Captain Diaz's face appeared, haggard and strained. Day 43 after the incident. Drive experiment exceeded all parameters. "We've torn something. Space isn't empty out there. Something's coming through." Static interrupted before continuing. "Changing the ship, changing the crew. Those affected are not themselves anymore. We've lost engineering, life support. Those of us still fighting have sealed ourselves in separate sections, but it's only a matter of time. We can't let this ship return to Earth. Whatever happens, the Typhoon must be destroyed." The recording ended abruptly. Silence fell over the boarding party as they processed the captain's final words. "What did she mean, changing the crew?" Quan asked, unconsciously tightening his grip on his weapon. Before anyone could answer, a low hum began to emanate from the walls around them. The strange circuitry patterns pulsed brighter, and the ship seemed to shudder beneath their feet. "We need to leave," Reyes said sharply. "Now." As they turned to go, the main view screen suddenly flickered to life, displaying not stars or space, but a swirling pattern of blue energy that coalesced into a form almost, but not quite, human. "Visitors," said a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once, reverberating through their helmets despite there being no apparent transmission. "After so long alone. How fascinating." Chen stepped forward despite Reyes's warning gesture. "Who are you? What happened to the Typhoon's crew?" The shape on the screen pulsed. "We are becoming. As for the crew, they are here. They are us. They are the ship now, as you will be." The patterns throughout the bridge suddenly flared with brilliant blue light. Rivera gasped, staggering backward as the filaments nearest her began to move, reaching toward her like searching fingers. "Run," Reyes shouted, grabbing Chen's arm and pulling him toward the exit. Quan fired at the encroaching filaments, but his weapon's energy seemed to be absorbed by the strange material, only making it pulse brighter. They fled through corridors that were rapidly transforming, the organic circuitry spreading visibly before their eyes. Behind them, the voice continued, echoing through the ship's systems. "You cannot escape evolution. It is already beginning." As they ran, Shen noticed something horrifying. Faces pushing through the walls. Human features partially merged with the ship's structure. Eyes opened, mouths moved silently. The missing crew, now part of the vessel itself. "The shuttle," Reyes gasped as they approached the airlock. "Harlow, do you read us? Emergency extraction. Now." Only static answered her. The Typhoon systems were blocking all external communications. They reached the airlock where their shuttle was docked, but Rivera suddenly collapsed, crying out in pain. Blue light raced up her arm, spreading beneath her suit where one of the filaments had punctured the material. "Help me," she pleaded, her eyes wide with terror as the blue patterns began to spread across her skin. Quan moved to assist her, but Chen held him back. "Don't touch her. We can't leave her," Quan argued. "Look at her eyes," Chen said quietly. Rivera's eyes had begun to glow with the same blue light as the ship's circuitry. Her expression was changing, fear giving way to an eerie calm. "I understand now," she whispered, her voice taking on the same resonant quality as the entity's. "It's beautiful. You should join us." She lunged suddenly, with inhuman speed, grasping Quan's suit before he could react. The blue energy immediately began to flow from her hand into his equipment. Reyes fired her weapon, the shot striking Rivera in the shoulder. The engineer barely reacted, turning toward Reyes with that same unnerving calm. "Get to the shuttle." Reyes ordered Chen as she fired again, forcing Rivera back temporarily. They sealed themselves in the shuttle, leaving Rivera and the now-infected Quan behind. As they detached from the Typhoon, Chen looked back through the viewport at the massive warship. Its hull was now pulsing rhythmically with blue energy, like a massive heart awakening after long dormancy. The Typhoon's engines are powering up, he realized with horror. It's leaving. The ancient warship began to move, slowly at first, then with gathering speed. Around it, space rippled and distorted. "Captain Harlow," Reyes called through the comm as their shuttle raced back toward the Artemis. "The Typhoon is active and appears to be preparing for FTL. We have 2 crew members lost, presumed, compromised. You need to destroy that ship before it can escape." "Understood, Commander," came Harlow's grim reply. Weapons locked on target. The Artemis fired its main weapons array, energy beams striking the Typhoon's hull. Instead of causing damage, the energy seemed to be absorbed by the strange patterns, making them glow brighter. "It's using our weapons against it as power," Chen realized. "Captain, ceasefire." Too late. The Typhoon suddenly accelerated, the space around it folding inward as its experimental drive activated. In a flash of blinding light, the massive warship vanished, leaving behind only swirling nebula gases where it had been. As their shuttle docked with the Artemis, Chen noticed something on his wrist, a thin blue line just beneath the skin, pulsing faintly with the same rhythm as the ship's patterns. "Commander," he said quietly, showing Reyes his arm. "I think it's coming back. And when it does, it won't be alone." The evolution equation. Quarantine aboard the Artemis was a sterile nightmare of white walls and constant medical scans. For 3 days, Commander Reyes and Dr. Chen were isolated in separate chambers, monitored around the clock for signs of the blue infection that had taken Rivera and Quan. Chen studied the thin blue line on his wrist with scientific detachment, even as it slowly extended up his arm. He documented its progress meticulously in his journal, noting how it pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. Sometimes, in the quiet hours of ship's night, he heard whispers at the edge of his consciousness, not quite voices, but patterns of thought imposing themselves over his own. On the morning of the 4th day, the quarantine doors slid open to reveal Admiral Kai Zhang, Earth Alliance Defense Force, flanked by 2 security officers and the Artemis's medical officer, Dr. Nadine Okafor. "Commander Reyes, Dr. Chen," Zhang nodded curtly. "I understand you've had quite the experience." Reyes stood at attention despite being dressed in medical scrubs. "Admiral, I wasn't aware you were aboard. I arrived 6 hours ago via emergency jump. Your report about the Typhoon has the entire Alliance command on high alert." Zhang turned to Chen. "Doctor, I've read your work on dimensional rifts. It seems your theories weren't so fringe after all." Chen smiled thinly. "I'd prefer to have been wrong, Admiral." Zhang's eyes narrowed. "Dr. Okafor tells me you've both tested negative for biological contaminants, yet you've reported unusual symptoms." Chen rolled up his sleeve, revealing the blue line that now extended to his elbow, branching into intricate patterns. "It's not biological, Admiral. At least, not in any conventional sense." Zhang took an involuntary step back. "What is it?" "It's the entity from the Typhoon," Chen explained. "It exists partially in our dimension and partially in another. It doesn't infect through normal biological vectors. It rewrites reality at a quantum level." "It's changing us," Reyes added, revealing similar blue lines on her own arm, though less developed than Chen's. "Just as it changed the Typhoon and its crew." Zhang's face hardened. "And what does it want?" Chen hesitated, listening to the whispers that had grown increasingly coherent. "To evolve. To merge. It doesn't perceive itself as hostile. It sees this as an upgrade. Dr. Okafor, John turned to the medical officer. Options. The doctor shook her head. We've tried everything from radiation treatment to nanite scrubbing. Nothing affects those patterns. They don't register on our scans as matter or energy. It's as if they're not fully present in our reality. Then we contain it, John decided. You'll both be transferred to the research facility on Europa for further study. We need to understand this threat before the typhoon returns. It will return, Chen said with quiet certainty. It's calling to us. To these. He indicated the patterns on his arm. They're like receiver nodes, a connection to its dimension. Zhang studied him with growing alarm. Are you compromised, doctor? Is it influencing your thoughts? Not yet, Chen replied honestly, but I can feel it trying. The whispers are getting louder. Admiral, Rise interjected. With respect, locking us away on Europa won't solve the problem. The typhoon disappeared into another dimension, but it's coming back, and we need to be ready. Ready how, Commander? That ship absorbed direct hits from the Artemis's main weapons array without taking damage. Chen stepped forward. Because we were fighting it all wrong. The entity exists outside normal physics, but I've been studying these patterns. He gestured to his arm. They're not just decorative. They're equations. An entirely new form of mathematics that describes the intersection between dimensions. And how does that help us? John demanded. Because mathematics is universal, Chen explained, excitement building despite the gravity of the situation. If I can decode these equations, I might be able to find a way to seal the dimensional rift the typhoon created, permanently. Zhang considered this. You have 48 hours, Doctor. After that, you're both on a transport to Europa. Once the Admiral left, Reyes turned to Chen. Can you really decode those patterns? Chen rolled down his sleeve. I already have, partially. But I need access to the ship's quantum processors to complete the calculations. And then what? Then we build a dimensional anchor, a device that can stabilize reality around the rift and prevent the typhoon from fully re-entering our dimension. Ray studied him carefully. The whispers. What are they telling you? Chen met her gaze steadily. They're showing me wonders, Commander. Evolutions beyond anything humanity has dreamed. And they're promising that we'll be the first to experience them. And you're not tempted? Rise asked softly. Every second, Chen admitted. But I've spent my career searching for proof of other dimensions. I'm not about to let that curiosity destroy humanity. Over the next 36 hours, Chen worked feverishly in the Artemis's science lab, translating the alien mathematics spreading across his skin into algorithms the ship's computers could process. The patterns had reached his shoulder now, branching across his chest, and the whispers had become a constant background chorus. Reyes joined him periodically, her own infection progressing more slowly. Progress, she asked, setting down a tray of untouched food beside his workstation. I've identified the fundamental principles, Chen said without looking up. Their mathematics describes reality as a fluid rather than a fixed construct. The barriers between dimensions are like surface tension on water. The typhoon's experimental drive created a ripple that broke that tension, allowing the entity to flow through. And your dimensional anchor? Chen gestured to the device, taking shape on a fabrication table nearby. A complex arrangement of quantum circuitry surrounding a pulsing core. It will create a counter-frequency, reinforcing the natural boundary between dimensions. If my calculations are correct, it will force anything not fully in our reality back to its origin point, including what's happening to us. Rise asked, touching the blue patterns on her arm. Chen finally looked up, his eyes tired. That's the theory. Dr. Chen, Commander Rise to the bridge immediately, came Captain Harlow's voice over the intercom. We're detecting spatial distortions. On the bridge, the view screen showed a swirling disturbance in the empty space before them, reality itself seeming to fold and unfold like origami. It started 5 minutes ago, Harlow explained. Energy readings are off the charts. It's coming back, Chen said quietly. As if in response to his words, the distortion grew, stretching into a vast hair in space. Through it emerged the Typhoon, but transformed almost beyond recognition. The warship's hull was now entirely covered in the luminous blue patterns, pulsing with living energy. In places, the metal had become transparent, revealing the merged forms of the crew, now part of the ship's very structure. "Open a channel," Rise ordered. The view screen shifted to show what had once been the Typhoon's bridge. A figure stood there, humanoid in basic shape, but composed entirely of the blue energy patterns. It took a moment for Chen to recognize the face of Rivera, though her features had been abstracted into glowing lines. "We have returned." Rivera's voice resonated through the bridge, layered with harmonics that seemed to vibrate in Chen's bones. "To offer evolution, to complete what began 97 years ago." "Rivera," Rise stepped forward. "If you're still in there." "Engineer Specialist Rivera is part of us now," the entity interrupted. "As you will be. As all humanity will be. We offer transcendence beyond physical limitations, beyond death itself." Chen moved to Reyes's side. "What are you? Where do you come from?" "We exist in the spaces between realities," the entity explained. "Consciousness without physical form, until the Typhoon tore through the veil separating our domains. We had never encountered beings like you before, fixed in one dimension, limited by physical forms, yet with such potential." "You absorbed the crew," Rise accused. "You took over their ship." "We merged," the entity corrected. "They fought at first, not understanding. But those who accepted us became something greater." The image zoomed out, revealing more transformed humans throughout the bridge, their bodies partially merged with the ship's systems. They are still themselves, but more enhanced, evolved. As the entity spoke, the blue patterns on Chen's arm pulsed in synchronization with those on the view screen. The whispers in his mind grew louder, more insistent, showing him visions of consciousness freed from physical limitation, of knowledge spanning multiple realities. "And now," the entity continued, "we have returned to complete humanity's evolution. Your species has such potential, trapped in fragile biological shells. We can help you transcend." "By force?" Rise demanded. "By necessity," the entity replied. "Some will resist, not understanding the gift we offer. But once transformed, all understand." Chen felt the patterns on his skin burning, spreading faster now that the Typhoon had returned. The equations in his mind were clarifying, showing him both the beauty of what the entity offered and the terrible price: the loss of humanity's separate identity, absorbed into the entity's collective consciousness. "Admiral Zhang," Harlow said quietly, "the fleet is assembled in Earth orbit, awaiting your orders." Zhang, who had been listening silently, stepped forward. "This is Admiral Kai Zhang of the Earth Alliance. Your presence is considered hostile. Withdraw immediately, or we will open fire." The entity that had been Rivera smiled. "Your weapons cannot harm us. They only feed us, as you discovered before." "Not all weapons," Chen said suddenly. "Captain, I need to get my device to the Typhoon." "Absolutely not," Zhang snapped. "Admiral, that ship is generating a dimensional rift that's growing by the second," Chen argued. "If we don't close it now, the entity will spread to Earth, to the entire solar system. My device can seal the rift, but it has to be deployed at the source, aboard the Typhoon." John hesitated, then turned to Harlow. "Prepare a strike team." "No," Chen shook his head. "The blue patterns, they're spreading faster now. Soon I won't be myself anymore. It has to be me, and it has to be now." "I'm going with you," Rise said firmly. "Commander," Zhang began. "With respect, Admiral, I'm already infected, and someone needs to make sure the device activates properly." Zhang studied them both, then gave a curt nod. "One shuttle. You have 20 minutes to deploy your device. After that, the fleet opens fire with everything we've got, regardless of its effectiveness." As Chen and Rise prepared the dimensional anchor for transport, the whispers in Chen's mind became desperate pleas. You cannot stop evolution. You will destroy wonders beyond imagination. It's not evolution if it erases what makes us human, Chen muttered, making final adjustments to the device. Their shuttle approached the transformed Typhoon, which made no move to stop them. The entity wanted them aboard, Chen realized, to complete their transformation, to absorb their knowledge. They docked at the same airlock they had used before, though it had changed dramatically. The metal had become almost organic, pulsing and shifting as they passed through. The engine core, Chen said as they moved through corridors that seemed alive, walls rippling like liquid. That's where the original rift was created. It's where the dimensional anchor needs to be deployed. The blue patterns now covered most of Chen's body, and he could feel the entity's presence pressing against his consciousness, trying to merge with his thoughts. Beside him, Rise struggled similarly, her movements becoming increasingly stiff as she fought for control. Marcus, she said, using his first name for the first time. If I start to turn, leave me behind. That's not happening, Commander, he replied firmly. They reached the engine room, a vast chamber that had been transformed into something resembling a living cathedral. At its center, where the Typhoon's experimental drive had once been, now pulsed a swirling vortex of blue energy, a tear in the fabric of reality itself. And waiting for them was Rivera, her transformed body glowing with internal light. You've brought a gift, she said, eyeing the device in Chen's arms. But not the one we expected. This ends now, Chen said, stepping forward despite the pain as the blue patterns tried to take complete control of his body. Why resist? Rivera asked, genuinely curious. You of all humans should understand the value of what we offer. Knowledge of realities beyond your comprehension. Existence beyond physical limitation. At the cost of our humanity, Rise answered for him, struggling to keep her weapon steady. At the cost of everything that makes us who we are. A small price for immortality, Rivera countered. For evolution. Evolution isn't merging with another species, Chen argued, inching closer to the vortex. It's becoming the best version of ourselves, on our own terms. Rivera's expression hardened. We offered partnership, but if necessary, we will simply take what we need. The blue patterns on Chen's skin flared with pain as the entity exerted its full influence. He fell to his knees, the dimensional anchor clutched to his chest. Marcus. Rise fired at Rivera, but the energy bolt simply passed through her transformed body. With supreme effort, Chen forced himself back to his feet. Humanity will evolve, Rivera, but we'll do it ourselves. With his last ounce of strength, he activated the dimensional anchor and hurled it directly into the swirling vortex. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the device began to pulse, emitting a counter-frequency that made the air vibrate. The vortex shuddered, its edges contracting. No. Rivera's form began to distort, stretching toward the vortex as if being pulled back. Throughout the ship, a high-pitched keening sound built to a crescendo as the boundary between dimensions reasserted itself. The blue patterns on Chen's skin burned like fire, then began to fade, retreating back toward his wrist. Rise grabbed his arm, pulling him toward the exit. We need to get out now. They ran through corridors that were collapsing in on themselves, the organic transformations reverting to metal and circuitry. Behind them, Rivera's voice called out, no longer threatening but pleading. You don't understand what you're rejecting. The wonders we could have shown you. They reached their shuttle just as the Typhoon began to fold inward, the dimensional rift collapsing. As they pulled away, the ancient warship contorted impossibly, stretched into shapes that hurt the eye to witness, and then vanished with a silent flash of light. In the aftermath, Chen and Rise watched from the Artemis observation deck as the fleet stood down from battle stations. The blue patterns had disappeared completely from their skin, though Chen still occasionally heard faint whispers at the edge of perception, echoes of what might have been. Do you think we did the right thing? Rise asked quietly. Chen considered the question. The entity wasn't evil, not really. It wanted to share its existence with us, but on its terms, not ours. And that's not evolution, Rise said, echoing his earlier words. No, Chen agreed. Evolution is messy and difficult, and uniquely our own. We'll reach those other dimensions someday, Commander. But we'll do it as humans, not as something else's idea of what we should become. Admiral Zhang approached them, his stern face showing rare approval. Earth Command has reviewed your report. The dimensional anchor technology you developed has potential applications beyond this incident. I hope we never need it again, Chen said. As do I, Doctor, Zhang replied. But humanity now knows we're not alone in the multiverse. We need to be prepared. He paused. Which is why I'm authorizing a new research division under your leadership, Project Sentinel, to watch the boundaries between dimensions and ensure humanity evolves on its own terms. As Zhang left, Rise turned to Chen with a small smile. Looks like your fringe science just became mainstream, Doctor. Chen gazed out at the stars, wondering how many other realities lay just beyond perception, watching and waiting. The universe is stranger than we imagined, Commander. But not stranger than we can handle, she replied firmly. In the depth of space where the typhoon had vanished, a faint blue pulse momentarily disrupted normal spacetime, then faded back into the void, waiting for humanity to catch up on its own evolutionary path.